folks. I'm Jennifer Briggs, and we're flipping the script today, and we're going to interview the Alpha Dog. Thanks for joining us. Hey, Jim, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm sort of humbled, honored, and wonder where you're going to take this thing. I'm not used to being interviewed.
Well, I know, but you do such a great job of bringing education and technology news and all of these tips and pieces of advice to the rest of us in the industry. And I just thought that it was time to talk a little bit about the man, the myth, the legend, Jim Ziegler, and
Oh,
Miss Debbie a little bit too, because I think that's an important part of your story. I've gotten to hear so many things that maybe not everyone has. So today, I want to take it all the way back and ask some questions about that West Side redneck Jacksonville native as you got set started, and kind of your evolution, Jim, because I think one of the most amazing things for you folks who are watching, I mean, I know everybody knows you, right? But what they may not know is how many times you have reinvented yourself and evolved to make sure that you were at the top of whatever industry you were in, even before the alpha dog became the alpha dog in the car business, right?
oh, the, I don't know where we're going with this, but there were some stories.
There were some stories for sure. So, one of the things I think a lot of us know that you used to be in the radio business, right?
Yeah, I was a DJ and a radio advertising salesman.
But you were kind of like a celebrity, right?
Well, you
In the
know,
radio business?
it, when you say that, there was a song in the 70s called, or the 80s actually, called "Video Killed the Radio Star,"
I remember that
and
one.
we people don't realize that DJs at local rock stations, and we were one of the biggest rock stations in the world. We were celebrities. I mean, not just me. One of my partners, a guy that I did a lot of work with, was Jay Thomas, and
And
I was all the character voices on his show. And Jay actually got me into radio, and he was the hockey player on Cheers, and he got Murphy Brown pregnant. He went on to
yeah, I was going to say,
yeah,
I think a lot of us have heard of Jay Thomas.
Jay Thomas became an actor, but he and I started out together in Jacksonville, Florida at WAPE radio, and he brought
and
me into the radio business.
and that was the number one rock station, right? For
Oh my gosh, it's 700 miles of you. We broadcast all the way to Norfolk and all the way south to Orlando, right up the coast.
so
50,000 watts,
so for our
legendary.
is for our viewers watching, if you're not familiar with radio reach, and thankfully I have a little bit of experience with some family in the radio business, that is huge to be able to broadcast that far.
I was
So
Dr. X, the big time radio celebrity.
Dr. X. So did Dr. X have any fun gimmicks? What was Dr. X's thing?
Dr. X was supposed to be an ex wrestler turned DJ. Now, I really
Which
wasn't an ex wrestler, but I hung around all the wrestlers, and I was bench pressing 450 pounds, and I looked like a wrestler. So,
Now you say you weren't a wrestler, but at some point in time you did do tough man competitions, correct?
yeah, that was a little different. I got into tough man competition, which was a precursor to ultimate fighting. This was gloves. It was a little tame, but the last fight I was in, I got knocked out in 45 seconds.
Ooh. Now that was that before you became Dr. X or after?
Oh, that was after. That was when I was a car salesman.
Okay, that
I
was
didn't even
after
know. I
Dr.
was working at Superior Dotson, and the other salesman entered me in the tough guys competition because I
As
was
a
a
surprise.
bit of a bar fighter and a bit, a lot of a bar fighter. I had a
Ties
reputation
back
in
to that
those days.
Jacksonville West Side thing, right?
I was a West Side redneck and proud of it. I still hang around the West Side group on Facebook. Yeah, we we're a tight clan.
I think that that type of beginning definitely creates someone who is always fighting, not in a physical way, but fighting and striving to be the best and to bring the best to the table.
Well, I was a pretty good bar fighter, Jennifer. I mean, if there was a bar fight and the police knew it was me, they would send more than one car.
Okay. All right.
If there was in a bar fight, we're going to get at least 2 squad cars.
They're like, listen, this is a big time celebrity guy. We need to have this, because you were, now tell us the difference. Were you a bodybuilder or weightlifter?
I was a heavyweight lifter, and I was bench pressing 450 most of my adult life. There's videos on YouTube right now of me bench pressing 300 pounds when I was 67 years old.
Okay, now I feel like I have really slacked off on my research for this interview because I did not know that. I would have put a link here.
You could go a Jim Ziegler 300-pound bench press, and you'll get a half dozen in my 60s when I was still benching 300.
I don't even know what 300 pounds looks like. So, but so really the Dr. X, even your persona really fit into the athlete and the wrestler fighter type thing as you were coming through your career and your younger life, right? Like it wasn't, was it typecasting, or did you choose the persona or someone else?
Well, Dr. X is a cartoon character I created, much like the Alpha Dog. It was fun. I when I was a DJ in Jacksonville, there wasn't a restaurant I could go in or a bar I could go in if somebody didn't pick up the tab. It was pretty glorious. I would interview my dates on the radio.
Okay, wait, now Miss, I don't know if Miss Debbie is listening or not, but so you interviewed your dates on the radio, like as to decide, like dating show style?
We're not going to go too far into that, Jennifer, but yeah.
I was just picturing like the Match Game, right? Like, and before you go on a date with Dr. X, you've got to come on this show on the radio.
I put them on the air live and they would interview.
Did anybody ever call in and tell you not to date that person?
Yeah, many times. But it was a lot of fun being a DJ. It was some of the most fun times of my life. And I see Patrick O'Brien just put that across the screen. Yeah, the Leonard Skinner boys and the 38 Special band were all neighborhood guys. And
yeah,
sometimes they would actually 38 Special and some of the Skinner boys would come over our apartment and jam.
So
these are neighborhood guys. I mean, Billy Powell, who was the keyboard player for Leonard Skinner, was in the Cub Scouts with me.
In the Cub Scouts with him?
Yes. And I remember when his mother used to spank him with a hairbrush to make him take piano lessons.
Thank goodness she did that, right?
He didn't want to take piano lessons and grew up to be the keyboard player for Leonard Skinner. The last time I saw Billy was in the airport in Jacksonville, and we were in the bar together waiting for the flight back to Atlanta. And I said, Billy, come on, we're late for the flight. He said, Jim, you're still taking care of me.
Oh, now that's something I think a lot of people know your personas, especially the Alpha Dog, and some folks have heard about Dr. X, and I think there was even one in between, but we'll jump to that in a little bit. But I want to talk about that, you taking care of people, because, personally, for me, I consider you to be a mentor, and you and Debbie most certainly are an inspiration, both personally and professionally. I know that I have sought advice from you guys on countless different things. So I kind of second the keyboard player from 38 Special. It was 38 Special, right? Billy?
Leonard Skinner.
Leonard Skinner. I kind of second his thing that
actually Leonard Skinner and 38 Special. The Ronnie Van Zant, Donnie Van Zant, the Van Zant brothers were leading that group. We went to Forest High School, and they went to Robert E. Lee.
Okay.
But they were neighborhood guys, and we knew all of them. Jeff Carlisi was a good friend of mine. I knew all the musicians of the neighborhood.
Do you think that led you towards radio because you grew up with a lot of musicians?
You know, I don't know. I was a sheet metal mechanic. I was, I was an apprentice. I'm a journeyman in three trades. That's something that.
Yeah, a lot of people probably don't know that, Jim. We got to learn that when we came down to visit you before your surgery. So, what trades are you a journeyman in?
I'm a journeyman aircraft sheet metal mechanic, aircraft helium arc welder, and airframes mechanic. I did 7 years of apprenticeship out of high school. I didn't attend college. And during the Vietnam era, I was repairing aircraft.
Wow. I know, being from Wichita, Kansas, a lot of my family worked in the shops working on aircrafts as well, and that's a big job. That's a big job. So,
But you know, I never worked as a journeyman. It was amazing because I served 7 years of apprenticeship to become a journeyman in those trades. And at the end of that, Vietnam ended and Nixon laid us all off. I was a government employee.
oh, so that's like, I mean,
That's
7 years.
how I
That's
got
like,
into radio.
okay, all right. So it got, because I was going to say 7 years is like becoming a doctor. So you just decided to become Dr. X instead of taking your, with not having the opportunity with the apprenticeship that you had done.
I was calling Jay Thomas. Jay Thomas was on the radio 7 to midnight. And I was calling him up and reporting to him the wrestling matches.
Oh, that's how it started.
And he said, I've got Mr. X on the phone. So then one of the wrestlers, Great Malenko, got a doctorate in wrestling technology. So I became Dr. X.
Dr. X.
Jay Thomas said, come on down to the radio station. We have a slot for you. And
Now, what did you think in that moment when he called you up and he said that? What was going through your head?
Well, I was an expert in promotions, and I always wanted to do that. And I became promotions director for the radio station. I set up all the great rambling raft races and the great Frisbee fly-in and the landing of the big kahuna at the beach, the gathering. But radio taught me how to speak.
It definitely is. I think that is, yeah, because you're a certified speaking professional. And I think that radio definitely is, I think growing, my mother dated a DJ after my parents got divorced for almost 8 years. So I spent most of my adolescence in the radio station. So it definitely,
Really?
I did. Yes. Yeah. Actually, it was funny because I would do spots and do commercials at like 11 and people thought it was an adult, voiceover, whatever, but like, hey, Jennifer, get in there and Jenny, get on the microphone. But,
well, I wanted to be a salesman. It was kind of interesting because one thing I noticed, DJs have a lot of fame and celebrity, but we didn't make a lot of money.
No, they do not.
No, but we got all kinds of perks. We traded out my apartment. I had to trade out for my apartment. We traded advertising, the tires on my car, anything I needed, meals in a restaurant. I could sign the tickets. So we had a lot of perks, but not a lot of cash. And I noticed that all the salesmen at the radio station, the salespersons at the radio station wore coats and ties and dressed up really nice. And so I went to Stan Kaplan, the owner of the radio station, and I said, I want to be a salesman. He said, well, Jim, you can't be a salesman. He said, our salesmen have college educations. And frankly, Jim, you're kind of rough. I bonded you out of jail myself. He said, you're not the reputation we want on the street. You're great as a DJ, but we don't want you as a salesman.
It's crazy to hear that story, knowing your career now, looking back to think that somebody said, you don't have what it takes for sale.
So I went to WIVY radio. I jumped ship and they would let me be on the air. Well, they would let me sell as long as I could be on the air.
So you
So
were doing double duty at that
I was
station.
doing double duty. I took an air shift and I was selling. And it wasn't long before I was recruited by WVOJ radio for a full-time salesman with a lot more money. And in the 2 years I was with WVOJ, I set the records for radio advertising sales.
Okay.
I sold $250,000 of spots at $8 a piece.
And what year was that?
Probably, I'm going to think it was 73, 74.
I was just thinking, that's the first year, Jim Ziegler, of his first sales record that was set.
Right.
Not your last, of course.
But the record was not the dollar amount. $250,000 is long since broken, but the record was $8 a spot.
Yeah,
that's it was unheard of that I would sell that volume of commercials. But see, I was a single guy, and I was selling the nightclubs and things that the married men and women weren't. They were already home at 5.
One thing that I think is amazing about you, Jim, is that you always find that avenue, right? Like you said, the other salespeople were married guys at home, and you were taking that opportunity to take care of an area that had been underserved. And I think you do that now as well. But it's interesting to me that you've been doing that your whole career. I love it. It's awesome.
Well, the funny thing is, I've broken records in several industries, and I never accidentally broke a record. People say, well, you broke the record. And wait, Steve, I found out what the record was, and I went after it. It wasn't that I woke up one day, hey, I broke a record. No.
It was intentional.
It's always intentional.
So
I was a state record pole vaulter.
Wait a minute. Wait, pole vaulting? I'm so excited because I'm sitting here thinking I know more about you than a lot of people do, but I didn't see pole vaulting in these scrapbooks we went through.
Yes, you did. You just didn't notice it. Yeah, you did. The scrapbooks I showed you. When I was in Jacksonville, let me tell you, when I was in Jacksonville, I was a terrible pole vaulter. I was pole vaulting 10 feet 6 inches.
Oh, that's shorter than the pole, isn't it?
We had several guys doing 12 feet, 13 feet. But I was so bad, they wouldn't take me on the bus to an out-of-town track meet.
Oh.
I mean, I was so bad. I was such a bad pole vaulter. And in my senior year, my father got transferred in the military to Meridian, Mississippi.
Okay.
So the coach says, you play football? I said, yes, sir, but I'm not very good. He said, well, you run track? I said, I pole vault. He said, well, I said, but I'm really a terrible pole vaulter. He said, well, how high do you pole vault? I said, 10.6. 10.6? State record's 9 feet.
Oh, in Mississippi? So I want to just take a minute to describe this to the audience. When Elise and Bobby and I went down to visit Jim and Debbie, on the island, out comes all these scrapbooks of Jim's career coming through radio, and you spent some time as a therapist that I thought was fascinating. And so we had there's like 5 or 6 scrapbooks, right? Just all spread out over. So I'm sad that I missed the pole vaulting part. There was so much interesting stuff to look through, but that's fantastic. So Florida, your record was 10 foot was bad, but in Mississippi, that's fantastic.
That was fantastic because we were in a B-level country store. I mean, I think, at that level of high school, it was the record.
Okay, there we go. So I'm really curious with this transition to sales in the radio business. Immediately after that, though, so you crashed a couple records, right? Broke them, and setting that intention, I think, is important. And for a lot of people watching right now, regardless of if your position is sales or you're a manager or you're an owner, and your goals aren't done, right? You're not done breaking records. So I want to just point that out. Like Jim said, I never accidentally broke a record. And I think that's important no matter where you are to have that in mind. So that's one thing I think that you do for us as an industry is to provide that kind of inspiration, even if somebody, because I've been told I couldn't sell before, right? I'm a girl. Girls should not be able to sell.
Well, that's right.
No, like,
No,
yeah, we don't sell. We help people buy things,
I'm
and we
joking.
help them buy a lot of things. But just the adversity and how you've continued to adapt and evolve over the years is so very impressive to me. So my next question for you actually is going to I know we're going to jump a few years here, but talking about those 2 records you broke for sales at the radio station, and jump into some of these other accolades, because you have not 1, but 4 Lifetime Achievement Awards, correct?
Yeah, I do. The most recent one was, where is it? Yeah, it's here somewhere. Hang on.
Oh, no worries. Now,
Well,
folks, I
let's
have
just,
seen these trophies in real life, folks. They're pretty impressive.
okay, hang on. There you
There
go.
we go.
I've got a couple Lifetime Achievement Awards. The big pyramid looking one, to that side right there. That one was given to me by the Bobbitt Company here a couple of years ago. That was the most recent.
The most
But
recent.
I've got 4 Lifetime Achievement Awards and a number of Sales Trainer of the Year awards, and everybody gives me awards. You know how that is.
Well, I think that I would flip that differently, because I don't think everyone gives you awards. I think that your career and your legacy has earned you those accolades. So there's not often that I would correct you, but right there I will, because no one gave those to you. You said it a minute ago. You intentionally achieve goals.
Well, you know, I'm going on 48 years in the car business.
Now, Jim, that's about 6 years older than I am.
48 years. I walked in a car dealership in 1976, and I had dropped out for a year, and I quit radio. I got divorced from a previous marriage, and I jumped on a motorcycle and I went to California for a year.
Just I think some people would call that an eat, pray, love, right? Just to when you find yourself at that pivot point or that crossroad in your life, taking some time. So you got on the bike.
I got on a motorcycle and I drove all the way to California. I hung out in a hippie commune with and I was a hippie, long hair and a beard. You saw the picture.
I did see the picture.
Yeah, so in 1976, I spent a year, or 75. I spent a year in California, and went to Esalen Institute, and I actually met the Swami Muktananda and some of the,
Okay, so is that and I forgive my ignorance, because I am not familiar with that institute. Is that an ashram?
Well, Esalen Institute is still there. In the 70s, it was all the pop psychology gurus of the day.
Gotcha.
And I just visited, and but I learned my speaking style. That was where I learned stage speaking.
I was going to ask you that, because I was going to say, is that where you learned, since it was a bunch of pop psychologists, is that where you learned your training in hypnotherapy?
Yeah, that's where I learned to do hypnosis. Yes, I did a lot of stage shows, and
I'm fascinated by that part. By the way, I just
it was so funny. You do these stage shows, and I did state fairs, and I did the Roosevelt Mall. I did certain shopping malls would have me. I did one at a car dealer grand opening. I did a lot of stage shows and hypnosis shows, and I was doing some weight loss. This is while I was selling cars, by the way. I was dual duty again.
Right, running 2 businesses.
I wasn't going to be in the car business long. I was going to do it for till I could get a good job. I was
How
just
many of
doing,
us have said that?
yeah, I was gonna, but they gave me a free car. And one thing I had at that time was really bad credit.
Yeah, we've
You know,
heard some of those stories, right?
yeah, I didn't pay anybody for anything.
I think
You know,
my favorite one was you loaded up in your buy here, pay here car and drove
yeah.
to another state. And
But
I,
but the
in
third month in the industry, I made $4,500
that third month
in my as a
in
radio
1970.
executive. In my best day, I never made 30,000 a year, and here I made, and that was big money in that day.
Oh, yeah.
But when I made $4,500 in a month, and it was like incredible. And
Do you remember
yeah,
what was going through your head when you got that commission check?
well, first of all, I went and paid off some bills that were behind. Got my bills caught up for that $4,500. That was you know, and I was living large, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I was hooked on the car business. This is what I'm going to do, and I became a student of the industry.
So, and
That's what
now we've
very few
talked about
people
that
do.
before, but I want you to explain for the folks watching today what does that mean to you to be a student of the industry?
Well, I had met Jackie B. Cooper. And Jackie B. Cooper was a great influence in my life, probably the greatest sales trainer of that generation. And he came to our dealership. And Jackie B. Cooper was the real deal. He could sell what he taught. There's so many frauds in the industry today that can't do what they teach. And I despise that. I mean, but Jackie B. Cooper was the real deal.
Yeah.
Jackie B. Cooper said to the managers, I want everybody to take a turn on this customer. Everybody speak to him. And if you can't close this customer, if you can't close them, you walk them to that side door right there. And I'll be standing by that side door. It's Jackie Cooper. And all I want you to do is walk the people by me and say, oh, by the way, folks, this is Mr. Cooper. And I want you to turn around, walk away, and I'll take it from there. And he closed half of the people
They were about ready to walk.
They were walking these people. And by the way, this is Mr. Cooper. And he would just stand there at the door. And that's when I realized and Jackie became a good friend of mine. He didn't stay at my house or anything like that, but we were business friends and I talked to him quite often. He was the inspiration for me getting into the business I'm now in.
That's fantastic. I think your list of friends is quite comprehensive. We've already talked about some of your famous musician friends and actor friends, and now we're talking about some industry friends. You've got some very important friends. I mean, when you want a car, your process looks a lot different than the rest of the country, right?
Of course. You want me to tell it?
No, I mean, I think that you don't have to tell it, but I think what's amazing.
I'll tell it, no
You
problem.
tell it.
When I needed a Lincoln Aviator a couple months back, I called the president of Ford. Jim Farley and I have been friends for a while. Mark Lenné. When Mark Lenné was president of General Motors, he built a Corvette especially for me.
Yeah.
I made a lot of friends in dealers. I can get more dealers on the telephone than any human being that you know.
Okay, so there was a piece of advice you gave me a few years ago about getting dealers on the phone that I thought was so unique and hilarious. Do you want to share that with the audience?
Okay, now this isn't. All I have to do is say Jim Ziegler's on the phone, and even
Right.
if they don't like me, they'll take the phone.
Yes.
Jim Ziegler's on the phone. What's that son of a bitch want? I mean, anybody will take my phone call. People are afraid not to take my phone call.
They're probably wondering what's going on.
Exactly. But if you can't get the dealer on the phone and the receptionist is starting to screen you out, can I tell him what this is about? Yes, ma'am. I have his test results back from the free clinic.
I laughed about that for days after you and I had that
They
conversation.
always put you through. And if the dealer has a sense of humor, they'll always pick up the phone.
Which I think most of us do, right? They'll be like, oh man. But
I have
I
his
think
test results back from the free clinic.
one of the things that I think is amazing, it's not just about bragging about your connections, it's about the relationships that you've created throughout your career, right? We've had the opportunity to interview several people on the Dog Pound who you started working with their parents, and now they're taking over and you're working with them. And so it's almost like it's not just a one-time thing. You're part of the family for a lot of dealers across the country.
When I wrote the book, The Prosperity Equation, back in the late 90s and the early 2000s, I wrote two versions of the prosperity equation. And it wasn't a bestseller, but we sold quite a few of those. And in the prosperity equation, I said the most powerful people on earth are those people that influence the most other people. And influence is power. Money is just measurement,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have enough money. I don't need any more money. I don't give me money. But no,
Right. Listen, sponsors, that's not what we're talking about. Keep
Debbie and
sending
I
your
have
checks.
more money than we will spend in our lifetime. I mean, I don't need more money. So that is a position to be in. When you don't need money, you can build relationships, because I don't want anything from you. And people know that. I've helped so many people, and I have done good things for so many people, and I expect nothing in return.
And you don't talk about it, which I think
No.
is what really just shows how genuine you are in those efforts. And one thing I think a lot of people don't even realize, and we're coming up here, I think actually in 9 or 10 days, Women in Automotive is having their conference. And one of the things that a lot of people don't even realize about you and Debbie is you have really opened the door for a lot of women in our industry. I feel like I'm one of those women that you've helped to open the door for. And so I'd like to just chat about that a little bit, timing wise, and because you
I
really
was
are.
hiring women when I was an executive in dealerships. I mean, as a top executive manager, I never was a general manager. I never was a dealer principal. I was a GSM. But of multiple stores. But the truth is, I was hiring women in the 80s when it was very rare. And I've always promoted women. I've always elevated women. I've hired women in my own company, and I've put women in executive positions. And I think I was probably a pioneer in that.
I definitely think so. Because if I think back, like even when I first started, and I started in the accounting office in the dealership, so there were a lot more women in that department than anywhere else. But at that time, there was still less than like 2% of dealership staff were women, and
Mhm.
I can even imagine when you first started and promoting those types of employment initiative in the 80s.
Exactly.
Did you catch any heat for it? Did people question you?
Well,
I mean, I'm sure you laughed all the way through breaking a bunch of records and
Jennifer,
stuff.
when I'm a manager, nobody questions me. my nickname was Darth Vader. Understand that.
So that's funny because I was recently sitting with Dan Glass from Courtesy Acura in Lexington, Kentucky, which was formerly, it cracks me up selling cars like candy bars, right? Sam Sweet. So
Mhm.
He was telling me a story about when they had gone down, and I don't remember the exact year, but this was just Tuesday this week. He was telling me about how the first thing you did in this training was you told them the dealer principals and general managers. So Dan's like, here's what he did. He looks around the room and he says, if you're a GM or dealer principal, raise your hand. Then you ordered them out of the room to go fire the person they've been wanting to fire. He said, Dan goes, he told us we all know exactly who it is. Now go out there and do it and come back and
Oh,
tell me
that
how
was
you
the
feel.
funniest thing. I did that in dealer 20 groups. I can recall one time I was in Lake Tahoe and I was doing a dealer 20 group, NADA dealer 20 group. And this one dealer was complaining about this one salesperson. I said, well, you're complaining about a salesperson? I said, do you have bars on your cell phone? He said, yeah. I said, let's call that guy up right now and fire him. He said, well, he said, why? I said, in front of 20 other dealers. I said, why would you keep somebody 5 seconds past the point when you realize they're never going to make it?
It's a great
Why are
question.
you hanging on to bad people? Get rid of bad people. That was always my management style. Embrace good people, get rid of bad people. And I don't care if you sell 30 units a month. If you have a bad attitude, you're out of here.
Where do you think that came from? That's always been your management style. And so where did that
Well, I've
come
taken more dealerships to 500 and 1,000 units than anybody you know.
from?
And we did it by the quality of the people we put in front of the public. Number one, that's the number one priority, to staff up correctly, have the right number of people on the floor, and get rid of bad people, get rid of the mutineers, the people that don't want to, we run by processes. Average people with great processes can do incredible things.
Yeah.
But and processes are loose enough that people can have creativity. When I put processes in a dealership, everybody can be creative. We don't stifle people. But once we have the process, once there's the law, there's no room for outlaws.
Once there is the law, there's no room for outlaws. I like that. I've heard a
Yeah.
lot of COOs or owner of companies say, you're on the bus or you're off the bus. But I like that. Once you've established the law, there's no room for outlaws.
I've had dealers say, well, I can't fire the man who sells 20 units a month. Well, get 4 green peas to sell 5 and behave. And give him a bad reference.
Yeah, I know we've all been, I've been in stores before where it was like that, where, that person who was moving 25 or 30, but they were skating other people. It was at the cost of the other team members who were trying to do the right thing. And I've followed in your footprints and shot a couple of those folks in my day. And it always works out for the best in the end.
People would follow me anywhere because we never ever slowly grew a dealership. When I went into Westway Ford in Dallas, and we're talking 1988, they were selling 400 units when I walked in the door. A year later, we're selling over 1,000 consistently. Then I went to Prestige Ford, which was their competitor, because Van Tile bought Westway Ford.
Gotcha.
So then I went to their competitor, Prestige Ford, and we had a month where we did 1,700 units.
Wow.
A month. I mean,
at
we were
one
doing,
Ford store.
1,000 units every month.
And I think what's really important here, because I know I've grown stores that way, but the speed at which you're talking about this, it usually takes me about 18 months to get somebody to double their
don't need to
volumes.
sneak up on the numbers. That's where most dealers mess up, because act like you're already doing it. Staff up. If first of all, you gotta do an assessment of what that dealership's capable of selling. Realistically, can this dealership with this market can we do 500 units?
Yeah.
Then we decide we do 500 units. Then we act like we're already selling 500 units. We need enough cars on the ground to move 500 units ready to travel. We need enough staff to sell 500 units. We need to advertise like we're already selling 500 units. I heard the other day that a dealer in Texas just bought 2 dealerships. And this dealer immediately doubled the production of their best month in history, first month in, but did it with an incredible amount of advertising. And he staffed up to the right numbers. It's the exact formula that I've used for years. Staff up, get the inventory, and advertise like you're already doing it.
Well, and where do you think most folks get that wrong? Is it the staffing up? Is it the inventory, which I know right now that's
afraid
touchy?
to upset the salespeople, the managers. They want to, well, let's gradually grow the dealership. No, you don't gradually grow the dealership. You explode into the numbers. And that's where people don't get it, because you're going to upset the culture of the dealership no matter how fast you grow the dealership.
That's true.
Why drag it out?
It's a great point. Just rip that Band-Aid right off.
Blow it up and put it back together right away. That's the way I've grown dealerships. Blow it up, put it back together right away.
So that actually immediately made me think of one of your most favorite sayings is, of course, full price is fair price. Right now, again, circumstance is different, but you would have always said, peel them off the ceiling. It's easier than working them up. So you're always about.
I've changed that a bit. I've mellowed a bit in my old age, and
okay.
Right now, I've had to reinvent myself so many times, and we're in the digital age, and I'm teaching internet to young people, as you well know. So, most people my age don't know where the on switch on the computer is. So I'm ahead of them.
You are teaching me technology things, and I'd like to think I'm pretty tech savvy. So you're definitely ahead of most of them. Now, I don't want to get too far away from this ripple effect of these relationships, because we were recently talking just a long list of these folks that you've been with them since the look, Chris Baker. Oh my gosh. Chris, this is fantastic, because I was actually looking at my notes, and I have Chris Baker, Les Eck, and Billy Fusillo written here. And you have so many people that you have been with them since the very beginning of their days in the car.
This is amazing. Chris comes in right. Chris Baker is the fastest growing dealer in the United States. I mean, you got 23 stores, and I mean, this is overnight. Now, I was working with Berger Chevrolet in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And we got collectively Berger Chevrolet up to 500 units a month. They were doing about 200 units when I met them. So we got up to 500 units overnight. And that was 28 years ago. And a young Greenpeace salesperson came in, Chris Baker. Now, Chris Baker of Benton Baker, Chris Baker was a bodybuilder, a weightlifter, and I was a weightlifter. I was bench pressing 450 pounds. So Chris Baker and I, he's a bodybuilder, a weightlifter. We bonded. He was a Greenpeace salesperson.
And
so
what year?
From day one, and he's a friend of mine to this day.
So 28 years ago, that was.
Yes. He's been in the business 28 years ago. I was the first training that he ever had.
Now, and they have had, as you're talking about exploding into growth, because I know when I was back up in Michigan working for Feldman, I mean, Benton Baker had like 4 or 5 stores, and now Chris has 23. And that, I mean, it's been a couple of years since I left Michigan, but not that many. So that's
I joke with him that I taught him everything he knows. And same thing, you mentioned Billy Fusillo. Billy, I trained Billy from the beginning when he was a wholesaler. And he was a friend of mine. He was a friend of mine till the day he passed away. I mean, I love Billy Fusillo.
I think, I mean, and I'm sure, Jim, because I know not everybody always loves everyone, but I'm having a hard time imagining someone who's not inspired or just driven by you, even if they don't personally agree with you. It's like you light this fire in people, or under people, whichever way we want to go. But even generationally, I think about it, when I came out of the dealership direct and got into the consulting side, my very first client was Kristen Dillard. And
Oh, Kristen, yes, Kristen, what a fantastic dealer she is.
look at what she has done
I've
in
known
this
her from
last couple
infancy.
years. She is so phenomenal. I remember the first month she broke her dad's all-time record for units and gross profit, and it was a great celebration. But I mean, you've known her since how old?
Since she was born.
Since she was born, her whole life.
Oh, absolutely. Tom Dillard. Tom Dillard is a friend of mine. Her
He's so
father,
fantastic.
Thom, Tom. Her dad, I was consulting her dad in the 80s, the late 80s.
Now I'm here in Indianapolis.
Maybe the early 90s, but it was that time frame.
And you have stories like that all over the country, because when I moved down here to Indianapolis, you said you were telling me the same thing, like the Hare sisters, where you had worked with their dad, and so
Courtney Cole,
so
her dad Dave Cox. I was when she was 17, her dad was bringing her to my seminars, and the Hare organization, tremendous organization. They sold it, of course, when Courtney passed away.
yeah.
But yeah, when she was 17, her father, Dave Cox, was bringing her to my seminars, and she was incorporating my processes into the dealerships.
Well, and I think what's kind of amazing is we look at these folks who have been introduced to you either early in their careers or early in their lives, and we look at their successes and achievements now. And even though they have sold that organization, at least Hare is still a very big name. Sonic purchased it, right?
I think Sonic purchased it.
Sonic purchased that store.
All things must pass. All things change. But I look at my legacy. I look at who I've touched, and Mike Saab is a friend of mine, and his dad Lou Saab. I've known Lou for years. So many second and even third generation dealers are friends of mine that I worked with their parents.
And that is, we joke a lot in the car business that our hours are so intense, no matter what side you're on. If you're, on the asphalt selling, working bell to bell, or you're on this end of it, our coworkers or our colleagues really become our family. And when we have that hashtag AutoFam and things along that line, but we're talking about generations that you've helped to grow and to cultivate. And to me, that's amazing, because the ripple effect is so awesome. And to see that, because like you said a minute ago, it's not about money. And, for me, my why is to change how we do business in this industry. And I think we've done a lot of evolving over the last few years, certainly. But I could only hope to have the type of impact on the people I encounter that you do. I'm starting. I got a late start. I didn't get as early as a start as you did.
It's a lot of fun being me.
It's a lot of fun being you. So let's talk about a little bit of that fun. You just celebrated the puppy's birthday.
The puppy had its first birthday. The puppy is your King Charles Cavalier Spaniel, little tricolor. It's our baby. It's a child. It sleeps with us, and it sleeps anywhere it wants to, and it's a tremendous part of our lives right now. And Debbie and I are living life large. We're living in a country club. You've been to the house.
I have, yes. Chateau Elan, right?
Chateau Elan. We live in. We have $1 million home, but it's kind of interesting because there are $4 or $5 million homes right up the street. I tell people we live on the other end where the help is.
It's
You
quite
know,
it's quite the neighborhood. We stayed at the actual over by the vineyards, which was so
yeah.
beautiful. That's
The
got to be a
Chateau is a winery. It's a working winery, and it's kind of interesting.
yeah. I mean, you and Debbie, of course, were the highlight of the visit, but I'm going to tell you what, waking up with the sun coming over the vineyards was a close second.
Love it, love it, love it.
So, what are some other things that the Alpha Dog does for fun besides hanging out with his smoking hot trophy wife and playing with the new puppy?
Well, Debbie and I, we our hobbies are each other. We are totally inseparable. Yeah, we don't go anywhere without the other one. We've been married 38 years. She was an up.
Yes.
I sold her a car, totally put her in the ditch. I laid her away. I made $3,200 front side gross on a 82 Ford that I sold her, Thunderbird. And I mean, it was only a $12,000 car. I put her in the ditch. I made
Oh,
so much money
goodness.
on that deal, and then I made every payment myself. She came in to buy a car, and I said, and I dropped the girlfriend I was dating. It was like,
So when you saw, as a newlywed, this intrigues me, and you two have been just couple goals for the longest time. When you first saw her walk in, what did you think?
Well, when Debbie first came in, they were looking at a car with her younger brother, and I had to get her phone number, and her father was driving. She was 20. She was recently divorced, and I was recently divorced, and her father was driving. She had her own house, but her father they'd gone out to dinner or something, and he was trying to leave, and I'm trying to get her phone number, and I finally, she said it to me, and I said, okay. And I memorized it, 404-446-7556. Still remember it.
That is wonderful. That's wonderful.
I got her phone number. We dated for 2 years. We worked out together because I was lifting the heavy weights then. And I had my knee injuries when I was younger. And so, that played a part when I got a little older with the knee replacements. I had stepped out of a squat rack with 700 pounds on my shoulders and fell down. Yeah, I fell down with 700 pounds on my shoulders. I stepped right out of the squat rack and went straight down.
Oh, no.
So I had both knees replaced. I got 2 titanium knees. I'm on my 4th knee.
Wow.
Yeah, I wore out the first set.
So, but titanium, that
Yeah,
doesn't
these
work,
are 30
right?
year knees now, they
Okay.
tell me. The first one was 7-year knees, and they wore out in exactly 7 years. So anyway, Debbie and I were working out together. We were both members of American Fitness, and we finally got married, and it was amazing because I was an F&I. I was a salesman, and her mother and father sort of I
Frowned
said,
upon that.
well,
Yeah.
got time to get married, she said, well, my parents are going to have a problem because of the old Southern family, you got a picture Going with the Wind family, old Georgia family or the 100 relatives here since the Mayflower landed, So,
Right.
so her family was the old Georgia family, and we're going to get married. So she said, well, my parents could have trouble with me marrying a salesman. I said, well, what if I was a manager? So I went to the dealer and I said, look, I got to be a manager. So that's when I became an F&I manager.
I'm curious, how did that conversation with the dealer go? Because at that time, right? I'm assuming you were probably one of the top salespeople he had.
I was the top. I've never
The
been one of the top salesmen. Quit it.
top.
I have never been one of the top
You've
salesmen.
always been the. So
I've
that had to be
never worked at a car dealership that I wasn't the top salesman
top.
person.
So that had to be an interesting conversation then, because he was about to lose his number one salesperson.
No, they needed that salesperson was weak as well. That F&I manager was weak as well water, and so I told he said, "Well, Jim, we don't fire anybody during the holidays." And this was December or November. He said, "We're going to fire this guy on January 1st, right after the holidays. So you're going to have to remain a salesman until." So I had to be a salesman and report to this guy every day for my F&I, knowing he was about to be fired.
Right.
So then I get to meet her parents. By this time, I'm making incredible money, more money than I just set the world record. I did $1,000 a retail unit. Nobody had ever done that.
Yeah.
So
because that's where most of your awards are from, right? Your time as a finance manager.
All my awards, all my records were as an F&I manager. But I broke. There was a guy named Tony DeGanchi who was our provider of credit insurance and service contracts, and he said, "Jim, you could do $1,000 a retail unit." I said, "Well, so what?" He said, "Nobody's ever done it." I said, "You're kidding." He said, "No, you're 900 and something a retail unit. You could break the $1,000 barrier. Nobody." I said, "Check on that." So he came back. He said, "Auto age 500, NADA. Nobody." I've checked all the stats. Nobody's ever done $1,000 a retail unit. So I did $1,000 a retail unit that month.
Find out what the record is and then break it. I think you told us that was the plan earlier.
I went after it.
Yeah.
And so I get to finally I want to meet Debbie's parents. And I took them out to one of the nicest restaurants in Atlanta. And I had $5,000 cash in my pocket. I mean, I'm flush. So I took her parents out to the nicest restaurant in Atlanta. And we told them we're getting married. That's when we announced it.
All right.
So I pull out this wad with $5,000 and I pay for the meal. The meal was like $400, whatever it was, And her mother said, "He doesn't have a credit card, does he?"
Listen, low key. I mean, she's just looking out for her daughter.
Okay, so if the odds in Vegas would have took a shot at that marriage, they would have bet we wouldn't make it. The odds were against us.
Your guys' energy is the most amazing, and so many of us know you online or know you from your webinars or your video trainings, but for those who have actually had a chance to be in the same room with you and Debbie, I don't think anybody would have ever taken those odds that it wouldn't have lasted.
Well, we love each other dearly. And now, we did the conferences. We had 25 battle plans, 3 sales manager super conferences, and it was a lot of conferences until I caught the cancer.
Yeah.
Then the cancer and COVID followed the cancer. So.
Well, it has been an intense couple of years, and it's crazy to think now. I mean, Jim, in February it'll be 2 years, right, for the surgery.
February 27th, 2020.
Okay, so it'll just be 1 year coming up.
No, it'll be 2 years.
2020. Oh my gosh, it will. Look, I've lost a whole year looking at my calendar.
It'll be 2022, yeah.
So 2022, it'll be 2 years. And
2 years. And of course, I was in the hospital 14 days, and the chances of me dying were 50-50. It was, and then I had the chemo overdose and really almost died there. So I might be immortal.
You could be. Listen, and because even after all of that, and I know we're almost out of time here because it just went so fast, but again, even with those adversities and cancer and COVID, you reinvented your approach once again.
I'm doing online training right now.
Yeah.
ZieglerOnDemand.com. And I'm interviewing these interviews I'm doing with the sponsors. They're paying for those interviews.
So it's the sponsors pay for Ziegler On Demand.
I've got all my training online. Of course, I'm teaching college classes at Northwood now. That's kind of Professor Alpha Dog.
So fun.
I'm teaching general manager and F&I courses at Northwood University.
It is another evolution for you. And
Exactly.
folks, he's not saying, and we've talked about it before, but Ziegler On Demand is free for any dealership employee, anybody who wants to learn and grow. In this new evolution, the sponsors are paying for you to have this wonderful industry insight at no cost.
No cost. ZieglerOnDemand.com. Yeah, just the sponsors are paying for it.
Jim, I remember the day that you called me up and you said, "Hey, kiddo, I'm thinking about doing something a little bit crazy. I want to run it past you." And that's when you told me. You did. And I thought, that's brilliant. Get the sponsors to take care of it.
Not the kind of money I was making with the conferences, but now that I've got the cancer behind me, I'm still, my immune system is such, I don't want to travel.
No.
I don't want to be on these planes. I'm cancer free. But okay, we made $300,000 with the platform last year. Not the kind of money I'm used to make, but I don't need anymore.
But the ripple is bigger, I think.
I don't need it anymore.
Yeah, that's what you said earlier. It's not always about the money, but it's about the impact and the effect that you make on other people. And I think that's why I wanted to do this with you today.
It's free. The platform is free. Everybody else is charging for their training. I got my F&I school on there. I've got my sales manager school. It's all there.
It's fantastic. So folks, if you don't already have your team pulling information from there, you should certainly get registered and get set up. But I think it's just one more way that you are having a ripple effect on this industry by providing that training and information free of charge.
Well, I care. 30 years from now, I want people to say that Ziegler, boy, he was egotistical. He wore too much. He wore too much jewelry. He shows off. But he was honest, and he was the best. That's what I want people. I don't care. All this is the
the character.
Cartier glasses, the gold, the Rolexes. That's all part of the act.
Yeah.
But I want people to say I was honest. And I was the best there was.
Well, I have told my fair share of folks that outside of the persona, that Jim Ziegler is one of the most authentic and caring people I have ever met in my life.
Thank you.
So I said, everybody thinks he's all rough and tumble, but he's a big old softy. He's a big old softy. And you know what, Jim? It is now 3 minutes past 3:00. We've already been talking for an hour. Can you believe it?
Jennifer, thank you for doing this.
No, thank you. This was amazing. I even learned new stuff. I thought I was going to be sharing some inside awesome information with the rest of the industry, but I learned some new things about you today too. So thank you, Jim, for everything that you do for all of us.
Thank you for being my friend.
Oh, don't make me cry. Mess up this eye makeup, and this is a perfect swoop. So.
Oh no. Take care, Kim.
Thank you.